Hello and welcome back to all of the Street Fighters, where we're looking at almost every single Street Fighter game. And we are back looking at Street Fighter 3. So this is the second entry in the Street Fighter 3 series. It's called Street Fighter 3 Second Impact, or if you played this on Dreamcast, you may know it as Street Fighter 3 Double Impact, which was a double pack that came with the first Street Fighter 3 and the second Street Fighter 3. So, Street Fighter 3 Second Impact, as we established last time we looked at Street Fighter 3, it's a beautiful entry, it's one of my favourites, it's controversial in some ways, some people don't like it so much, but I would say that overall Street Fighter 3 is relatively popular with the audience. It's one of the more hardcore Street Fighter games, but that appeals to a lot of people. So what does Second Impact bring to the table? Well, we'll start, as we always do, with the character selection. So Street Fighter 3 Second Impact kind of brings 4 new characters, but one of them is a secret character, and that's Akuma. So Akuma makes his grand return. He's a secret computer control character who can also be playable. But really it brings 3 characters. So when you start the game, the character roster is increased by 3, and those 3 new characters are Hugo, who you may know from Final Fight. He's an enemy from Final Fight. Eurion, who's this tall, I'm trying to think how to describe him. He's really muscly and he just wears a little loincloth. And he recently popped up in Street Fighter 5 in the second season pass of downloadable characters. And then we've got Yang, who is the brother of Yun, and Yang appeared in the first version of Street Fighter 3 just as like a palette swap with Yun, but in this game he's been fleshed out into his own character. So we've got Hugo, Eurion, and Yang. There are 3 new characters, and Akuma if you unlock him. So going through these, as I said, Hugo is originally from Final Fight. Street Fighter games, they do this a lot. Like we've got Guy, and we'll have Cody, and then Hugo. He's one of the main enemies from Final Fight, and he's accompanied by Poison, who's another character from Final Fight, another enemy from Final Fight, who in this game she just kind of joins him as a little on-screen character. But she in later Street Fighter games, so debuting in Street Fighter Cross Tekken, she becomes a playable character in her own right. But in this game it's just Hugo. She just appears in his kind of intro and outro. Eurion is this kind of like big guy who uses like psychic energy. He's got these big psychic balls that he fires across the screen, and he can fire them diagonally or straight on. But he'll appear again. As I said, he appears. He's recently debuted in Street Fighter 5. It was quite exciting to see him back. And he's really cool. He's different to the rest of the roster. He's this kind of new style that we haven't seen before. And then Yang is very similar to Yun. I mean, it's a Ryu and Ken situation, really. He has been fleshed out into his own character, but he does play fairly similar. He's got the dive kick that Yun's got, famously. But he is his own character, but he's fairly similar. So this is very much the turbo to Street Fighter 2. Second Impact is. It's an iterative version of Street Fighter 3. So it adds these 4 new characters, but it also, as is usually the case, it adds some new gameplay features. So what are they? Well, number 1, EX moves are back. So you may remember when we looked at Street Fighter the movie, the game, that stupid game. The kind of the important thing that game added, which weirdly did add something important to Street Fighter, it added EX moves, which is where you pull off one of your special moves, but you use 2 attack buttons instead of 1. So if you're doing Ryu's Hadouken, he would do the stick motion down to forward, and then rather than just pressing punch, you would press 2 different punches at the same time. And what that does, it's a more powerful version of the move. So again, using Ryu's Hadouken for a good example, it will turn into a red fireball rather than a blue one, and it will hit multiple times. So it can break through. If someone else fires a Hadouken at you, your EX Hadouken will break through it with the first attack, and then carry on going and hit your opponent with the second. So it uses up 1 bar of your super combo meter at the bottom of the screen, but it's a more powerful version of your move. So when used correctly and when used in a combo, it's a really, really powerful tool. So you'll see that in the footage whenever a character flashes yellow. That's them doing an EX move, and generally if their attacks like a fireball or a projectile, it will have a different form. So Eurion's his big psychic ball thing that he fires 2. And as I say, Ryu's Hadouken is like on fire rather than just being a blue ball of energy. So what else is new? We've got throw cancels for the first time in this. So when an opponent goes to throw you, you can hold back on your stick and press your heavy punch or your heavy kick, and you can parry their throw. So that's really, really useful. But again, it's quite a move that's only you'll often really see it in the competitive scene, because it's quite complex. It involves hitting it exactly the right frame, and for most people it's just out of the realms of general use. But it's there. You can cancel throws if you know your opponent's going to throw you. If you've been blocking and they come in close and you think they're going to grab you, you can try and cancel their throw. And then finally we've got the personal action, which is a taunt, basically. Every character's got their own taunt. If you press heavy punch and heavy kick at the same time, your character will stop for a second and taunt their opponent. And that's not just a cosmetic thing. I mean, it looks cool and it's a good way of showing off when you've been beating down your opponent. But it also gives your character a little bonus. So different characters will receive different bonuses from their personal actions. To give an obvious example, Ryu's will lower his stun gauge. So underneath your health bar, you've got that little red gauge, which as you block, it raises, and when it reaches the top, you'll be stunned. Ryu's, if you taunt with Ryu, it'll lower that. So it's got a gameplay function. So it does kind of change the rhythm of Street Fighter 3. And that's something that first game didn't have. When you've beaten your opponent down and they hit the floor, you'll often stop to do your personal action, and you just kind of end up doing it more and more, and it becomes part of your rhythm of playing the game. And that is quite a significant change. Like when you read that on paper and you see, oh, every character's got a taunt. Like a lot of fighting games have taunts, and you never use them because they're just a little show-off thing. But it is actually part of the gameplay of Second Impact. And for me personally, I find it really changed my rhythm of playing the game. And I find myself taunting constantly because there's a gameplay feature attached to it. So you'll probably notice in a lot of this footage, some of the stages will have new art. In fact, pretty much all the stages have got new art. So Sean's, for example, Sean's stage in the first game, it was this kind of Christmassy scene with lots of snow on the ground, and it was night time. In this game, it's like a Brazilian street with a big truck that's crashed and all its watermelons are scattered all over the ground. And yeah, everyone's stages have got a bit of variety, and that's common across all Street Fighter games. One of the exciting additions to Second Impact, which we have to talk about, is the return of the bonus stage. So Street Fighter 2 has famously got bonus stages like the one where you're beating up a car, and then there's the one where you're smashing up barrels. And some Street Fighter games have bonus stages and some don't. Street Fighter 3 didn't. So new generation, it didn't have bonus stages. Second Impact brings that back. And after the third round, you'll see this footage in the video. After you've beaten your third opponent, this bonus game is amazing. I'm so glad they put it in. It's a parry practice. So Sean will be throwing basketballs at you, and it gives you a chance to practice your parries. So you may remember when we looked at Street Fighter 3 New Generation, the biggest new addition to the game was the Parry System, and it's when someone throws an attack at you, any kind of attack, a basic attack or a special move or whatever, you can, at the very minute it's about to hit you, you can press forward with your stick. And if you get it at the right frame, you'll parry that move, and it gives you a chance to counter. But it's just incredibly hard to pull off. I'm terrible at it. You'll see some footage in the video where my character will flash blue, or more likely the computer opponent will flash blue, and that's the parry being successfully pulled off. And it's so important to play in Street Fighter 3. It's like its biggest gameplay change from Street Fighter 2 and from the Alpha series. It's massively important, but it's just really difficult as well. So they've added in this parry practice as a bonus round, and it's really great. Like every time I do that, I feel like I'm getting better at the parries. And you'll notice that I miss like the first half of them, and then the last half I'm kind of hitting them by the end. So it's really, really useful, and it's a bit better than just like beating up a car. The final thing I'll talk about Second Impact is just a little interesting fact. Is that the arcade version had a widescreen mode. So if the machine it was running on had a widescreen monitor in it, the arcade operator could flip a switch and turn it into a widescreen mode. And that widescreen mode is actually missing from Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, which is the third and final version of Street Fighter 3. So it means that Second Impact is the only version of Street Fighter 3 that's got this widescreen mode. I think that's quite fascinating. I don't really understand why they took it out. Maybe it wasn't being used and it was taking up space on the board, the hard drive space. I don't know, but they took it out of Third Strike anyway. So there we have it. That's Street Fighter 3 Second Impact. It's a relatively iterative release, but like a lot of the later additions to the Street Fighter series are. Turbo was fairly iterative and Super was fairly iterative. They generally add new characters and new gameplay stuff, and Second Impact has both of those. So it is a significant release. The only home version that was ever released was the Dreamcast version. As I said, that's called Double Impact. Until 2018, when it's releasing on the Xbox One, PS4 and Switch and PC in the Street Fighter 30th Anniversary Collection, which has been announced since I last made one of these videos. So you'll be able to play Street Fighter 3 Second Impact and virtually every other Street Fighter game at home very soon. I kind of wish I'd waited for that collection before I started making these videos. It would have meant made capturing them a little easier. But anyway, that is by the by. I love this game. It's brilliant. Obviously being the second one, it's not quite so groundbreaking as Street Fighter 3 New Generation, and it's also not the ultimate version of Street Fighter 3. That's Third Strike, which we'll look at as our next Street Fighter 3 game. That's the one that people go to now, and that's the one that the fighting game community plays. But still, super cool entry. Lots of interesting things, a couple of new characters that we'll see again and again in future entries of Street Fighter. So overall, great game. As always, thank you so much for joining me. I've been loving making this series, absolutely loving it, and I'm glad that everyone seems to be enjoying it. And I don't know which one we're looking at next. I need to look at my big chronological list of Street Fighters. But yeah, we'll be back next Thursday, every Thursday. Check your YouTube feeds, and I'll see you then. Ta-ra, bye!